Welcome to another edition of the Advisor's Edge. You know, we're here because we want to help encourage and inform advisors when you're out there doing your good work. And it's really exciting to have Gene Farrell from Vanilla. He is the CEO of Vanilla. Now, I think I just screwed that up. Did you say president? CEO?
CEO is fine. CEO is fine.
All right.
And Farrell, like the animals, the Farrell animal.
Or the ice cream. In Portland, there was an ice cream parlor called Farrell's as well.
Farrell.
There we go. There we go. So yeah, so we're happy to have you on, but of course, Chuck, thanks again. Super happy to have you here. How is things out there on the East Coast these days?
Chilly, quite cold,
Chilly.
But I tell you what, I love it. I love my seasons. That's why I'm here in Connecticut. So I love the cold and snow as much as I like the heat and the beach. So it's all good for me.
Cool. Well, Gene and I were talking. We had a good conversation with at Schwab Impact, and he is originally from the Northwest. Currently, he's hanging out there in Arizona. So we're touching most of the corners here of the U.S., which is really cool. Thank you, Gene, for joining us. We want to hear, we want to hear what's the newest developments with Vanilla. Kind of bring us up to speed. Let's kind of start there. Tell us what's your world look like in the last year?
Well, I mean, it's been a kind of an incredible time with a lot of growth and a lot of kind of evolution of the category of estate planning. When we started this business, I joined actually a couple of years after it started. Steve Lockshin is our founder. He's a longtime wealth advisor and founded many successful companies. But the category was relatively nascent. I mean, most advisors thought of how they would support their clients with estate planning was going to be to essentially refer them to an estate attorney. Mm-hmm. And they would then pass that off. And many times there was no other involvement on the part of the advisor. The client would go off and either have their meeting with the attorney or they wouldn't. And the advisor never really kind of got to play the role of quarterback, which is, I think, where the industry is evolving to. And when we first started, there was a lot of good information and some data out there that suggested that about 92% of advised clients wanted their advisor to help navigate the estate planning process, help them figure out how to get the right documents in place, how to protect their family with sufficient liquidity, and then ensure that everything that they put in place was really consistent with their goals and wishes for what they wanted to have happen with their life's work. And then certainly for higher net worth families or for families that live in states that have estate taxes, help them navigate estate tax liabilities and how to optimize that. And but it turns out only about 24% of advised clients were actually getting that support from their advisors. And so we saw that as a real opportunity. And in early days, we would call that the estate advisory gap. And we talked a lot to advisors about it. And what has happened over time is, early days advisors, I think, were, you had some advisors that were very forward thinking and had always been kind of counseling on estate planning, but didn't really have great tools. And those advisors were some of our early customers, and they gave us a lot of great feedback on what they needed and the types of things that were required. And then we had, a lot of advisors that weren't comfortable with estate planning. They were worried that they didn't know the subject matter well enough. They didn't want to look bad in front of their clients, or they didn't feel like they could be experts. And so they didn't really want to engage. And over time, what we've seen is this, and you'll hear this term kind of holistic advice that advisors will, or the industry talks about. I think what they're realizing is, advisors and clients both are struggling to see how investments are going to be really the differentiator. It's hard for advisors to really demonstrate investment alpha. And frankly, all the data I've seen, most clients don't believe their advisors are going to be able to beat the indexes. So that leads to the question of how do I justify my fees and the support I'm providing? And I think more and more that's turning to deeper planning and more holistic holistic advice. And it's helped me with my retirement, helped me planning for my kids' college, helped me plan for potentially weddings at some point, but then helped me make sure that my affairs are in order. So, I can plan for efficient wealth transfer to my children. And that's really where estate planning comes in. And so what we've seen is really kind of beginning of last year, middle of last year, a huge kind of uptick in advisors finally getting to the place where they wanted to add estate planning to their practice. And
I bet.
What's that?
Oh, well, I was just thinking, I want to let Chuck chime in here a little
please.
bit. As a holistic advisor, I think maybe I saw some light bulbs go off for him there as you're kind of going through some great stuff. What's on your mind there, Chuck?
Yeah, I tell you what, the only thing that Gene said that was surprising was that 24% have been doing this already, which I think that's high. Honestly, I don't think it's even close to that, to be very honest. I can't think of maybe of my group, which is a fairly large group of advisors, up until maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I put it at 10%, and I think that could be generous. So everything else was not news, right? Estate planning is becoming table stakes. And really what's happening, just to take this one step kind of broader, is the whole concept of a family office is coming down in net worth, right? Mm-hmm. Family offices are no longer for the uber wealthy or even the wealthy. It's coming down where I'm going to put the over under at 10 years before there's one advisor group, whether it's Sovereign, we have in-house advisory, estate services, and tax prep now, all under one roof. Or you're going to have an advisor that has a deep connection with the estate folks or the accountants. But it's not like these clients, and I'm putting the over under at 10 years, they're going to have a discrete conversation with their estate person, their tax person, and their financial person. And these three people are not talking to each other. At a minimum, they're going to be talking much more, and more likely, they're all going to be working under the same umbrella. And I think that's really the future. And I'm going to call it 10 years for the over-under on that. But everything else, absolutely spot on. And every advisor I talk to is talking about, how do I deliver estate planning more easily at scale? How do I deliver tax planning and preparation easily and at scale? And that's where I think the beauty of the technology that you guys have at Vanilla really shines.
Yeah, I think we're seeing very much the same thing. And I think really in the last 6 months, from a software developer standpoint or a tool builder standpoint, early on, many times your first customers tend to be very tech savvy. They tend to be very curious, want to figure stuff out on their own. And then as you start to move up the adoption curve, you start to bring in more what I would call fast followers or even later adopters who are maybe less comfortable with technology, need a little bit more hand holding and want more and need more support. And we've seen that pivot in the business really in the last 6 months, where we had advisors early on that were very they figured it out. They were familiar with concepts, and now we're starting to see more mainstream advisors where they want to learn and they're digging in, but they're kind of coming up the learning curve faster, which is, I think, great, because I think it really reinforces that advisors really want to embrace this idea of holistic planning. And the key is being able to meet the client where they are.
Yeah. I'm curious, and I'm going to ask some questions that might be a little bit ignorant because Chuck, you and your team work in this every day, and obviously you're an expert, Gene. How long has Vanilla been around? Because you're saying you're seeing almost that uptick going right now with just people interested in how you guys help. When did you guys start?
Yeah, so we first launched the product at the beginning of 2023. So January 2023. So we've now been 3 full years in the market. We've doubled the business essentially every year. Today is the last year of our fiscal, we think we can do that again next year, just because we're so early really with the number of advisors. It's a huge population of advisors, and I would say, to Chuck's point, they're still maybe they started at 10 versus 24, but it's still not the majority that that are fully kind of up and running with estate planning.
Yeah. So I'm curious if I'm an advisor, say I've got, 150 million AUM, and I know the importance of estate planning, but maybe I don't have the resources to all dig into there. What do you do, right? And actually, this might be a question a little bit for both of you, because I know, Chuck, you've used Vanilla, and so you're pretty familiar with it. But let's start with Chuck on that one, because I'm just curious, how would you frame that with one of your advisors if they were new to your team and you're like, hey, I like this, but I want to get into it? Where do they start?
So the starting point is, how deeply does the advisor want to roll up his or her sleeves to do estate planning? I think that's the first part. And the other part too that I like to tell our advisors is, don't look at it as estate planning. And I need to come up with a better term for estate planning, because we look at it as estate organization and, let's say, advanced estate planning, which I guess is all under the umbrella of estate planning. Here's what I mean by that. The way I view this, and what do we try to get our advisors to think about too, is everyone needs estate organization. Everyone. Mm-hmm. My 18-year-old son that has a net worth of $2,200 as of today, he needs estate organization. Why? Why in the world? I know Gene knows the answer to this. Well, he's going off to college. And if he goes off to college and he gets hurt, the doctor's not going to talk to me because he's an adult. I don't think of him 100% all the time as such. I'm getting to get accustomed to that concept of his being an adult, and he certainly is a very mature guy. But if he gets hurt, I can't talk to the doctor until he has that healthcare power of attorney. So that's what I mean by estate organization, the basic documents, a basic trust, meaning a revocable one, a will, healthcare proxies, POAs, all that stuff. Everyone needs that. 18-year-olds that are worth $2,200, or clearly Warren Buffett, who's worth a lot more than that, needs that basic stuff. Now, where there's a divergence is who needs what I would like to call advanced estate planning. That's when you start putting an IR in front of that trust, an irrevocable trust. So what do you use an irrevocable trust for? Special needs planning, controlling from the grave, right? Which I think is a very important thing for a lot of folks. If you're going to pass on $10, $20 million to an 18-year-old, you want to put some guardrails. You want to control that legacy from the grave. And you also probably have an estate tax liability issue. That's a whole different set of circumstances that needs a whole level of expertise. So then the question becomes for me that I pose to the advisor, do you want to learn how to do that really, really well, where you can really take control of this? Or do you want to be plugged into a network of attorneys and work, and I'll use Gene's term here, which I agree with, as the quarterback? I fall under that latter category. So, we've adopted solutions to provide estate organization easily for everyone. Then for the people that need more advanced estate planning, controlling money from the grave, special needs, estate tax minimization, we don't want to learn how to be experts in that. We do want to learn how to speak the language. So basically the same level of competency that a general contractor would have on how to wire a house, that's what we need to have. But we don't want to wire that house, right? You don't want your general contractor wiring that panel, right? But you want him to know, or her to know, who is the best electrician, and to keep an eye on that electrician to make sure that electrician's covering all the steps. And that's where we have landed as a firm. And that helps, provide total estate planning for everyone, for organization, and for the people that need it. That's how we've decided to tackle that issue.
Yeah, that makes sense. How does Vanilla help with that? So if I, thinking 150 million advisor, and I'm like, I don't want to be the expert in it. How are you going to help me provide this service?
Yeah,
or if I'm asking the wrong question,
it's the right question. It's the question that many of our customers come to us with, and it really starts with. I think there's two elements to it. One is the education and the support, and we have a pretty robust set of educational materials called the Vanilla Academy. Advisors actually get CFP credit for being able to go through that to learn the fundamentals. And just learning kind of how trusts work, what's required for a good estate plan, what are the key things that you need to think about and consider with your client. And then it's the tooling. And that's where Vanilla comes in. And that's also where AI is becoming a bigger and bigger part of this, where the AI is able to help coach the advisor along the way. But for us, we really think about it. It starts with giving the advisor the tools to meet the client where they are. And to do that, you have to kind of understand where they're at in that entire process. And so we built a tool called the State Health Check. That it's a simple tool. Advisor can send it to the prospect. It takes, or client, existing client, it takes probably less than 5 minutes for them to complete. And it asks some basic questions around total household net worth. Have they done any planning? And if so, do they want to upload their documents and get an assessment of how that plan works? Family structure. How many kids? Are they married? What's the family situation? And then what's their life insurance situation? How much insurance do they have? What are their kind of annual expenditures, rough asset levels, to just kind of understand, do I have a life insurance deficit if something happened at this point? And what that quick check helps that advisor understand, first of all, what are we talking about here? Is this an individual? Is it a couple? Is it a family? It likely will give them some insight into total net worth that they may not have had when they were just looking at the asset management. And then importantly, what level of planning have they done? If they have no documents in place, then the first thing you want to do is say, let's work with you to get your documents in place. And there, Vanilla can help really on two dimensions. First is we have a whole document builder software tool where we can put everything from your basic will, pour over will, powers of attorney, and then your revocable trusts, either a basic trust or an advanced trust, depending on your complexity of your situation and the state you live in. And that covers all 50 states and supports that. But then if you have a client situation that is, maybe it's unique, maybe they have a special needs child, or they have a blended family and there are some unique provisions that don't fit into kind of the capabilities of the software, we have an attorney network that is actually a law firm that we've partnered with that has coverage in all 50 states, that works on a very transparent fixed fee basis and is very advisor friendly, which is super important because we want that advisor to continue to play that quarterback. And so if you engage one of the attorneys in the network, the advisor is invited, as long as the client gives permission, to participate in all of the meetings, be in all the calls, and really be able to help kind of guide and hold the client's hand through that process. And so that's where Vanilla kind of helps that advisor get started. Then from there, kind of what Chuck talked about is you're going to pretty quickly figure out if they just need basic planning or they need something more advanced. And if they need more advanced planning, then you likely want to do a full assessment of their documents, build out their balance sheet, understand what their transfer taxes look like. So how does their estate kind of waterfall work at first death and second death? Where is their potential tax liability? And then from there, we can help actually model different strategies to help you address whatever problem you're trying to solve in the current estate.
Yeah, that's great. It's interesting to me because there's also, with the estate planning, it's not like a one and done sort of thing, or at least for me, my wife and I are thinking, okay, it's been a few years, we need to dig back into it and do a complete review of it. And Chuck, chime in here when you grab something, you're like, that's interesting. I want to go deeper.
So I do have a question on something. So I know this is something that you guys have been either thinking about or in the process of, but integrating with e-money. Can you give us an update on that? Because I'm personally curious on that.
Yeah. We've had an e-money. We launched our e-money integration in the beginning of last year. So we pull over all of the balance sheet from e-money. We actually integrate today with Addepar, e-money, Black Diamond, Orion, and we're working on a number of others. We also have a Salesforce integration. So to make it easy to pull that balance sheet in, to kind of build that out. And then some of the other things that we've done recently is added more AI intelligence, both at the providing summaries of the overall plan, but we also now have the ability to create custom analysis. So you can analyze business agreements, you can analyze sets of trust documents, you can actually do You can actually create a custom summary that if there are certain things checked, for example, that your team wants to check for, maybe it's around fiduciaries or trust structure, or do you have trust protectors in place? The AI pulls all of that out and provides that. It also proactively provides a list of opportunities and inconsistencies when they analyze an existing trust structure as well. So kind of helping guide the advisor and the client to focus on the right areas.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's amazing what AI is able to do these days, and it is just, excuse me, like with any technology, exponential. I had a big project for some work I'm doing actually with Investment News, and I was like, let me just bang this out tonight. I was like, let me just start, in the sunroom and just tool around on my phone. I tooled around, and I put a link into AI, ChatGPT, and a few prompts, and I didn't have to get out of the chair. It was done. It was absolutely amazing, and it produced I don't think I could have done a much better job, and it got done while I'm sitting on the chair in 10 minutes. It's just unreal. So the context of this, where do you see the whole ability of AI to influence the estate preparation or the estate, the more advanced stuff, let's say? Because I know you guys and a lot of us do a great job with documents. When does it get to the point where it could do the irrevocable through the AI, or will a law firm always be necessary?
Well, I think that the AI we're working now with agentic and working on things like AI coaches that will be able to prepare things for the advisor. So the advisor today, if they said, hey, it looks like there may be an opportunity to create an irrevocable trust, and it's a spousal lifetime access trust. Today, the advisor can go into Vanilla and actually create a scenario that shows the client, if they created that spousal lifetime access trust, this is a tax benefit, and this is how that accrues over time, and they can configure that. Tomorrow, not literally tomorrow, but in the next probably 6 months, an AI agent will do that for them. The advisor will say, hey, I'd like to look at what a slat looks like here. Show me some options for a slat. And it just gets configured.
Right.
So it just starts to become much more, from a tooling perspective, much easier for the advisor, and not having to necessarily have that expert kind of planning judgment to go model scenarios. But the other area, I think, is that you're going to have the AI coach with a ton of context. We kind of call it Steve's brain. That's going to be able to guide and coach I'm referring to Steve Lokshin, our founder, but is going to be able to guide and offer advice to advisors when they're saying, hey, I've got this situation. What would you recommend as the right strategy? And then, Chuck, to your question of could we do the documents without even having to engage an attorney? The document generation part, when you get into irrevocable trust, is actually pretty straightforward. Those tend to be much less complex from a legal perspective than your revocable trust. But because it's irrevocable, we really feel like from a fiduciary perspective, you really want to have an attorney.
Yeah, I completely agree, by the way. I was just kind of curious what you guys were thinking on that, but
I
don't know when that actually happens. Maybe it does, but boy, I'm pretty far from that.
Yeah. And I think we're we can do those documents today through our attorney network. And I think I think where we likely end up is the ability to draft the documents through software to make it really efficient. But you're still going to want to have the consult with the client and the attorney to make sure, I'm aligned, I know everything.
If I may ask just, sorry, John, I just had a follow-up on that. So last time we spoke, I wasn't sure how built out the attorney network is. And that's why I love doing these podcasts, because I could do some due diligence and have some fun at the same time. Okay. So do you guys have full coast to coast 50 states attorneys to be able to do all that stuff now?
Yep, all 50 states. We partner with a firm called Will and Trust Center. And it's actually it's a firm that was originally created by it was created by a group of lawyers, but one of the founding lawyers also was a founder of a large RIA firm, and so they almost, I'd have to double check with them, but I want to say probably 95% of the work that they do is referrals from various RIAs. And so we created a partnership with them a couple of years ago, and immediately people might say, well, wait a minute, if they're doing work for other RIAs, do I have to worry about my client data and those types of things? But it's a standalone law firm. It's attorneys are bound by confidentiality and professional ethics that they're not sharing data across firms. There's no risk of that.
I mean, ethics aside, I think if they just take one client, that's going to shut down that operation pretty quickly. Go RIA, we'll shut them right down.
Everybody kind of immediately goes to, well, wait a minute. But frankly, it's kind of interesting. I've actually heard more advisors complain about local attorneys that they'll refer people to that work with multiple advisors, and there's probably more leakage there. But it's about 100 attorneys, I think, in the firm. They support all 50 states, and they can do everything from simple documents to estate administration to complex ultra high net worth, irrevocable trust, different trust, flats, grats, slats.
I was looking for my pen, which somehow got misplaced. I was writing that down because we're currently looking at a firm called Hargrove. Did you guys take a look at them at all as you were doing your exploration?
We did. I think I don't know how deep we got in that conversation. I would say the thing that really appealed to us about the firm that we chose was their ability to support the breadth and the fact that they were really advisor friendly. And our customers have been pretty happy with the service we've gotten there.
Yeah, I think that's key to have that combination, because there's only so much, going back to what I kind of started with, that advisors want to roll up their sleeves and do this. They want to understand it. And again, I think the way I put it is the right way, is at the general contractor level, but they don't want to learn how to be electricians, right?
Exactly right. And what's cool now is like Will and Trust Center they can do they'll do a free consultation for someone that wants to figure out what kind of plan that they need. But then if you've built your documents in vanilla and you just want to meet with an attorney afterwards and say, hey, just walk me through how this works, I want to make sure I'm good, they also offer a consultation there as well at a pretty reasonable fee. So it makes it really.
This is where I want to chime in here from a risk standpoint. One thing that's fantastic, and I know both of you are very smart, very understanding how the risk works, but I want to share it with whoever's listening to this too. When you have a firm like Vanilla that helps you get everything ready, of course, that's going to organize it, get it ready, maybe even suggest this is a language we should use, and then you take it to an attorney. Now, I think it's wiser to work with an attorney team that works with a lot of RIAs, because they're going to understand that fiduciary perspective from the RIA side, not only their own, but actually having the attorney sign off it helps mitigate a lot of that risk, because you're transferring just by their signature saying, yep, I've reviewed it, everything's good.
Oh yeah.
Because especially like you mentioned, Chuck, if you want to set those guardrails up for your family, if you died sooner than expected, and that's really what it's for, and those beneficiaries down the road have concerns, probably that law firm is still going to be there, and they're going to have that additional support if needed. So you're shifting some of that risk. You're having additional support. It's not unlike what an advisor does for their clients, because they don't know how risky it is sometimes with wire transfers or what have you. So it all plays together.
Totally right. Now, one thing I would tell you though is when you're generating documents from software, there's no free form involved. It is all off of templates that were developed by one of the top trust and estate firms in the country. In fact, they do all of Steve's work. And so, and there are hard guardrails into the provisions. So there's a lot of flexibility in choosing different provisions based on your situation, but every combination is fully vetted to be the proper legal structure, legal in your state, because we have different templates for every state, and really best practice based on what it is. So we try and avoid having people create structures that don't make sense. Right.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's good. That's fantastic. So I've been impressed. So one of the things I really liked, and because of course we could probably spend a lot more time on just estate planning and stuff like that, but sometimes we find there's interesting things to talk about. For example, on your website, when I went in there and I was doing some research before we had our first call, Gene, and you had a little bot come up on the side and says, "Hey, can I help you with anything?" And to be honest with you, or Frank, I'm like, get the heck out of my way, shut that stuff down as fast as I can. But I just threw it as going to experiment a little bit. And I said, well, I'm going to have a call with Gene and I don't really need your help, but he's going to be on the podcast. And it was very pleasant. And it came back and said, that sounds exciting. All of this stuff. I was impressed by that. Tell me a little bit about how you see yourself engaging or vanilla engaging with that potential advisor. What makes it easier for you to communicate that? Because that's something that's difficult to do. And the reason I asked the question is because a lot of our advisors want to have that high level of quality professionalism when they go to the website. So what can you share with us that maybe would be a tip or a trick for an advisor? How would they even explore thinking about if you were to have a tool like that on their website?
On their website.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think the most important thing is there's lots of different AI and bot tools out there. I think the most important thing is find one that kind of fits and they can be configured obviously, but you got to find one that fits kind of the level of professionalism that you're trying to deliver, right? And then most importantly is, what is the training, what is the content that you're providing to that bot so that they can be helpful, right? Because AI is super powerful, but in our experience, when you're engaging specifically with clients, you don't want to have a scenario where you're opening up an agent to the knowledge base of the internet. That's going to lead to hallucinations and bad information, and nothing good comes from that. So you really want to have a curated kind of set of knowledge base and training that you provide for that agent that's going to be interacting with your customers. And then you can set the persona for how do you want them to engage. And so
that's the part I was kind of chuckling about. Like, you could have a lot of fun probably with the persona, like, the character from Cousin Vinny perhaps could be a really fun sort of chat bot to have. And you can do all kinds of stuff, which would be absolutely hysterical. Maybe not the right forum in the wealth management arena, but boy, that could be kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I experiment with AI quite a bit on my own. Right now, my latest passion is Claude Cowork. If you haven't tried that, it's incredible. It's essentially, the way to think about it, you may have heard of Claude Code, which is really revolutionizing how we build software.
Yep.
Claude Cowork is essentially designed for non-developers, but it lets you can give it access, and you decide what you want it to have access to, but you can give it access to files, to your browser, to your email, and you can have it do a lot of incredible tasks. Kind of, Chuck, the way you talked about crafting that message, imagine that on steroids. Like, go do some research for me, pull some data from these sites, and then come back with some recommendations. I
love checking that kind of stuff out. What is that called again?
Called Claude Cowork, and it launched I think on the 12th of January. So it's only a few weeks old.
Oh, really?
I started with basic stuff like having it completely reorganize my desktop, and now I'm working on it, building some kind of productivity apps for me.
Oh, I think one of my team members that does a lot of our development on the software side, I think he just sent me something on that, and so this is a good reminder to go look into that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, check it out. It's pretty cool.
Well, one of the cool
to do.
Sorry, I
was just saying it's amazing what it's able to do, and one little tip I've gotten recently on ChatGPT, which is what I've been going to most recently, is essentially to tell it to stop being such a kiss ass.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Like every response until I said to stop, it was like, Chuck, that is brilliant. I was like,
Oh yeah,
nothing I'm saying is brilliant. I'm quite sure. I'd imagine a small percentage of what I'm saying is brilliant. And I was like, stop being such a kiss ass, And it got, I thought, better results after that, where it was being a little bit more devil advocate-y, which is what I want when I want a second opinion.
No, that's totally true. I actually, this is going to sound a little goofy, but I have debates with my with ChatGPT or Claude on different issues. One that's super hot right now is around kind of our election system, and you have a and this is not to be political in any way, but there's kind of two schools of thought around how we certify someone to be eligible to vote and how you actually track it. And there's a lot of debate about voter ID and how you do this. And I was pretty surprised to find out that I'm now an Arizona resident, but I was a Washington resident. But I was pretty surprised to find out both of those states have a scenario where the person registering self-certifies. They don't check to confirm your ID. They don't check to confirm you're a citizen. And I actually got in a debate with ChatGPT about this. And I said, like, how do you rectify this lack of burden of proof? And they said, well, voter fraud is really, hard to, it doesn't happen. And I said, well, but wait a minute, if they're self-certifying and you don't do, and they said, well, the only way you can actually detect it is through statistical variation. And I said, well, yeah, if 100% of people voted, and I kept giving it arguments around, like, voter turnout is never 100%. Yeah. So you could have a pretty meaningful, kind of population of people that were not actually eligible to vote that are voting, and it wouldn't show up in your argument that it's statistical. And it finally came to the point where it said, yeah, boy, you've raised a bunch of good points and you're right. And then we kind of got to this point where it ultimately said, if it turns around and they were able to prove that there actually was fraud, suddenly now, this is ChatGPT's opinion, the burden of proof is going to flip, and every system will be now challenged to say, prove that it can't be hacked, which I thought was a very interesting, which is sort of how a lot of politicians view it. Like, until you can prove to me it's wrong, we should just let people self-certify. But the bigger point to where you were going, Chuck, is I think after I started challenging and pointing out that, I was thinking for myself and not just spoon feeding what the answers it gave me, it started getting a lot crisper and maybe a little bit more like, I'm not going to push something over on you here.
Right.
I do think I would be supportive of that idea of self-certification when it came to speeding tickets, right? Imagine you just get pulled over and, the officers are like, well, how fast were you going? 55. Good enough for me.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, there's so many other areas where it's like, that's not good enough. Like, I don't know, getting on an airplane, buying alcohol, sports betting. Yeah. I mean, there's tons of things, but apparently voting is,
interesting.
We're very trusting.
That is interesting. Well, I mean, one of the things, just to loop it back to what we're talking about with vanilla, is the guardrails that because you guys are using AI obviously for development, right? You've got some tools just to help the person that's interested talk about it on your website, which is great. But you're also using it internally also to help lift things up.
Yeah, we use it with. I mean, our engineering teams use it to help design and then write software. Our business ops and our finance teams are using it to automate a lot of parts of the kind of the month-end close and other parts of how we operate. And then our customer support and success teams are using it pretty extensively. And I would tell you, I use it quite a bit actually for writing, kind of where you were at, Chuck. Whether I'm writing a presentation or a speech or an analysis on something I want to do with a product, I've kind of developed this iterative way of working with it where I'll give it context. I'll give it some prompts on things that I want to include. I'll have it write a first draft, and then we'll go through section by section, and we'll rewrite it based on. I'll give it more information. I'll insert data, and it just. I find that the quality is really good, but it's so much easier. It's just so much faster, I should say. Like I can go do that legwork myself, but to work with an intelligent assistant like that is really kind of game changing.
Yeah, I mean, to go from a thought to something that's about 70%, 80% good, and then you're just editing. That's what I was talking about last night, right? Yeah. I mean, I did do some edits, but it was minimal enough where I could do it right on my phone. I was blown away, truly blown away.
Yeah. I'd encourage you to. I mean, it's getting better and better, but I started using voice to do it. And
so this is what I do on everything. For my employee reviews now, I've changed the way I did it. Is I'm going through the questions and I'm talking through them. And then I tell it's using the AI to take it from my language to written. Yeah. And then I use it again and I say, okay, now take this script and summarize it to bring it to, because really when we're doing we're going way off topic here, but when we're doing an employee review, we want it to be something that we're communicating well so they can hear it. And hopefully we can both learn something from it. So this is great. I'm going to have one more business question, and then we always like to end with a personal question because we're people and we like to work with people, right? Robots will help us, but let's work with people. The one thing I'm curious on your perspective, Gene, is what the biggest challenge for advisors is when it comes to the work that Vanilla does with advisors. And I'm not saying problem that's created by Vanilla, maybe one that you're working on helping to solve. But what's the biggest challenge for advisors out there in that?
Oh, I think it comes back to what Chuck was talking about when we started this conversation, which is I think that a lot of advisors, estate planning can be fairly complex and can be technical. And I think a lot of advisors, it's intimidating. They don't want to make a mistake. Most people, when they're serving a client, they want to look intelligent and good when they're engaging with them. And so when you're dealing with something brand new, there's just a learning curve and a comfort level. And so I would say that's probably the number one thing that we see is just advisors getting a comfort and coming up that learning curve of how to engage, how to use the tools. And I think AI is going to continue to make that easier and more accessible. But I would say I think humans are going to have that learning curve. Yeah.
Chuck, do you have one other business question before we kind of land the plane?
I do actually, if I can ask one that's one I have personally for me in Sovereign, but I think this would be applicable for a lot of folks. So again, we tend to be more mass affluent. And so I would say if we were to break it down, the percentage of our clients that need estate organization, as we know, is 100%. Mm-hmm. The percent that needs advanced estate planning is probably 15 to 20%. Have you guys, and again, I haven't really done a deep dive with you guys for probably 18 months, but something that I thought would be great would be the following, is an ad hoc ability to use you guys for this particular client. So for example, it might be rough to do a subscription because we don't have that much need for it at this point. But what would be helpful is if we have a more advanced need, we just pay X dollars to do the analysis. Oh, looks like maybe that's a yes. To do the analysis for this particular client, and then perhaps use that, which I wrote down, will and trust center to execute on that, but on an ad hoc basis. So we don't have to commit year after year after year when we might only need it per advisor once or twice every few years.
Sure. So I would say today we don't have that offering, Chuck, but I would say that is something we just launched a program we call Starter, which is really designed for more the most mass affluent. So advisors that are just getting into it, they only want to offer documents to their clients and use estate health check. And that program we actually structured as it's almost, you do it by household. Mm-hmm. So you can sign up for so many households, kind of a thing. I don't think we have just one, but it can be a handful, and it's super affordable. Right. I kind of smiled though, because early days before we built software, we actually had an option where we charged a fixed fee. We were trying to learn how to do this. We charged a fixed fee. You would send us all the documents. We would do all the work and then produce a report for you. But we didn't have a will and trust center then. But I would say I'd be happy to follow up with you after this, Chuck. And we're always evolving kind of our go-to-market and how we do things to support wherever the market is and what customers need. So
I think there'd be a demand for that.
Yeah. I'd be happy to explore that with you.
Great. And then, I mean, on that note, Gene, what's the best way to folks? We'll get your information in the show notes, okay, and Vanilla and all of that. But what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you?
Justvanilla.com is the easiest way, and you can just fill out a contact form. And we have literally, I think we've been averaging, hundreds of people a month that are coming and wanting to get a demo and wanting to learn. So that's the best way. And then you'll have my email address as well, and they're welcome to reach out to me directly.
Great. Well, thanks a ton for taking some time out of your day. I don't think hopefully we don't have any hard stops in the next 5 minutes, because what I would love to hear from you, this helps just keep it personal. What do you want to be known by? And this is not necessarily a work thing, but we like to think of it, if you imagine yourself out there on the beach, I don't know, maybe in the San Juan Islands, you're sitting there, or maybe on your sailboat, and you're thinking about, man, this is how people know who I am, and this is how I'm remembered. What does that look like for Gene?
Well, I would tell you that it's funny. I talk to my team a lot about legacy, right, and what you do and what's the impact you have on the planet. It's kind of related to estate planning, right? I talk about, your estate plan is essentially how you're going to steward your life's work. What kind of impact are you going to have? So I've had a super interesting career. I started my career at the Coca-Cola Company, and I spent 20 years at Coke. And the last 6 of that, I built a product from idea, basically, to full commercialization. It's called Coca-Cola Freestyle. So if you've ever been to a Five Guys or an AMC Theaters and you've seen that touchscreen fountain machine that does 150 different drinks.
Oh, yeah.
So I led the team that created that. So that was, and everybody joke with me, and everybody, that knows me, kind of knows me as a freestyle guy. And that's going to be my, they're like, your tombstone will be in the shape of a freestyle machine. But then I went on to work at Amazon Web Services and spent 5 years there building a bunch of really interesting services. Many of them that are still there now, and from Amazon Workspaces to Amazon Chime, which runs all the video that you see on Slack. And then I went to a company called Smartsheet with early stage, and we built that out and grew it from 80 million in ARR to over 600 million when I left, and they crossed through $1 billion not long after I left, and actually Vista took them private last year. So I've had lots of interesting career kind of milestones, and now we're building Vanilla. But I would say the thing that I'm probably most want to be remembered for is all along the way, I've kind of had a real passion for trying to develop future leaders, develop people, help people realize their talent and find their, what energizes them, right? And there was a book I read early in my career called First Break All the Rules by Marcus Buckingham, and it talked a lot about this strengths-based team building. Like, if you find something you're really good at and you enjoy, that's where you should focus your energy, right? And so I've spent a lot of time coaching people, and I still have. It's funny, I have people that I worked with at Coca-Cola that still will reach out to me from time to time to ask for advice, or I'm thinking about trying to do something, and I know you've had similar experiences. And so for me, it's being remembered as someone that was caring and wanted to kind of bring people along and help them be more successful. I've been really blessed to have a great career. I have a great family. I've been married to the same woman since I graduated from college in 1988. So, I have 2 wonderful kids. I'm pretty blessed. So, I would say that would be it, being remembered for somebody that was there for their friends and tried to help people.
That's great. Well, that's fun, because now I feel like I know you a little bit more. and it's a growing. But that's really cool. I appreciate everyone when they come through with their thoughts there. So, thank you, Gene. It's been a fun hour. We've gone all over the place, but that's what this is about. Hopefully, advisors are feeling a little bit more comfortable to ask the questions in the estate planning, and a little bit more ready for the day. So thank you guys. Oh yeah,
Gene, it was great catching up with you for sure.
Yeah, great to see
Will
you.
you be at Orion or T3?
I won't. My team's going to be at Citywide. I think we are going to have some folks at Orion.
Okay.
I think the first conference I'm scheduled to be at is Citywide, and not Citywide. The Future Proof out on the West Coast.
Okay, I'll be at that one for sure.
Yeah, let's plan to connect.
Absolutely. We'll see you then. Great stuff, Gene. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
thanks guys.